They were not just giants, they were rulers of continents, shaping landscapes across Africa, Europe, and Asia for nearly 1,000,000 years. But the real mystery was never their size. It was how many different giants were hiding behind the same straight tusks. If the skulls are telling the truth, this was not one empire of elephants, but several, rising, spreading, and diverging across a world in flux. And that changes everything. The world they entered was unstable. During the Pleistocene, between 2.5 million and 11,700 years ago, ice sheets advanced and retreated across the northern hemisphere in relentless cycles. Grasslands expanded, forests contracted, entire ecosystems shifted with the rhythm of glacial time. Out of Africa emerged the straight-tusked elephants of the genus Palaeoloxodon, close relatives of today's African elephants, yet built on a far more monumental scale. They spread eastward into the Near East, across Europe, into India, and eventually as far as Japan. Fossils even rest beneath what is now Trafalgar Square in London. They entered landscapes already occupied by mammoths, cold-adapted grazers that had moved into Eurasia long before them. This was not an empty world waiting to be claimed. It was a continent already contested. And yet for hundreds of thousands of years, straight-tusked elephants became one of its defining forces. The skull was the first clue. Unlike any other elephant, Palaeoloxodon carried a massive bony crest running across the top of its head, jutting forward like a rigid headband. It was not ornamental, it was structural. Their heads were enormous. Some individuals stood up to 4.5 meters at the shoulder and may have weighed over 14 tons. Supporting that weight required reinforced muscle attachments, and the crest acted as an anchor, redistributing force, stabilizing the skull, sustaining the strain of carrying the largest land body ever assembled. But the crest did not look the same everywhere. In Africa, it was robust but proportionate. As populations spread east into Eurasia, the crest grew larger and more pronounced. The skull itself changed shape. Subtle shifts, measurable differences. Diet shifted too. In Africa, they were primarily grazers of open savanna. In Europe, tooth wear shows a transition toward browsing, feeding on leaves and woody vegetation, likely to avoid direct competition with grazing mammoths. Adaptable, powerful, structurally reinforced for scale. But specialization always carries risk. If the skull was built to support enormity, what happens when the world no longer supports giants? Expansion brought pressure. When Palaeoloxodon moved into Eurasia, it entered ecosystems already dominated by mammoths, cold-adapted grazers that had arrived at least 2 million years earlier. The grasslands favored them, so the straight-tusked elephants adjusted. In Europe, evidence from tooth wear reveals a dietary shift, from grazing in open African savannas to browsing in woodlands, leaves, branches, shrubs, a strategic pivot to avoid direct competition. But ecosystems are never static. Glacial cycles repeatedly transformed Eurasia. Ice sheets advanced, forests retreated, dry steppe expanded, then reversed again. Habitat mosaics fragmented and reassembled over thousands of years. Even body structure reflected regional pressures. As populations moved eastward, the cranial crest grew larger, likely responding to increasing head size. Geography was not just separating populations, it was reshaping them, and isolation carried consequences. On Mediterranean islands, Crete, Cyprus, Sicily, Malta, some populations became stranded. There, without predators and with limited resources, gigantism reversed. Island dwarfism took hold. Mainland giants, island miniatures. The same lineage responding in opposite directions, because ecosystems do not reward size alone. They reward fit, and fit changes. The turning point did not arrive as a single catastrophe. It arrived as climate. Roughly 780,000 years ago, an ancestral species, Palaeoloxodon reci, dispersed from Africa into the Near East. From there, lineages radiated outward, into India, where Palaeoloxodon pneumaticus would become the largest of them all, into Japan, evolving into Palaeoloxodon naumani by 400,000 years ago, across mainland Europe, where Palaeoloxodon antiquus established itself as the dominant form. What once appeared to be a single widespread species was, in reality, a branching network of at least 4 distinct lineages, possibly more. For hundreds of thousands of years, this diversification worked. But the Pleistocene climate intensified. Glacial cycles grew more extreme. Ice sheets expanded farther south. Dry steppes spread across Eurasia. Open woodlands, the browsing habitats that favored straight-tusked elephants, contracted. The advantage began to tilt. Mammoths thrived in expanding grasslands. The ecological balance shifted. And when habitat shrinks, even giants feel the pressure. The decline was gradual. There is no evidence of a single sudden collapse, no sharp boundary layer marking an abrupt disappearance. Instead, the fossil record suggests contraction, populations thinning as suitable habitats fragmented. As the northern ice sheets expanded and dry steppes spread, the open woodlands that supported browsing elephants diminished. The environments that had once allowed multiple Palaeoloxodon species to diversify became increasingly inhospitable. They survived until at least 21,000 years ago. By then, modern humans were present across much of their range. At a Paleolithic site in Italy, butchered remains show that people processed straight-tusked elephants. Whether humans hunted them systematically is uncertain, but climate pressure was undeniable. Shrinking forests. They were expanding grasslands. Competitive imbalance. The giants that once dominated Eurasian landscapes were gradually replaced by species better suited to colder, drier worlds. Extinction in this case was not an explosion, it was erosion. When the straight-tusked elephants faded, the structure of Eurasian ecosystems shifted with them. Open woodlands continued to contract under intensifying glacial cycles. Dry steppe expanded across vast stretches of the continent. In that landscape, mammoths, already adapted to grazing in cold, open environments, held the advantage. The balance of megafauna tilted. On Mediterranean islands, the dwarf descendants of Palaeoloxodon antiquus lingered in isolation for a time, products of ecological constraint rather than dominance. On the mainland, however, the era of the straight-tusked giants closed. What had once been a network of multiple species, spreading from Africa to India, Japan, and across Europe, narrowed to absence. And the Pleistocene world continued reorganizing itself. Because ecosystems do not collapse when one lineage disappears, they recalibrate. For centuries, the straight-tusked elephants were measured only by their size, 4.5 meters tall, 14 tons of muscle and bone, the largest land mammals of their time. But the skulls reveal a different story. Not one species dominating 3 continents, but multiple lineages adapting, diverging, and responding to shifting climates and contested landscapes. Giants, yes, but also experiments in scale. They rose during cycles of expansion. They diversified when ecosystems allowed it, and they faded as habitats narrowed. In nature, dominance is not permanence, it is alignment. With climate, with competition, with opportunity. When that alignment breaks, even the largest animals ever to walk the earth become part of the sediment. Not erased, but replaced.